Hey everybody, we're back. Now look, I know I was joking around about the computer guy, but this is some serious stuff. John Gibson with Just Right?
Yes.
You tell people you're their IT guy.
Yeah, we're their IT department.
See, it's called John. See, you gotta call Johns. Johns are smart dudes, I'm just saying right now. But he's put some stuff in front of me, which is actually, I love this world, is about the cyber world.
Yes.
Let's get into some of this, because every week there's something new, or somebody got breached, or now someone's got ransomed.
Yes, there's so many attacks out there right now, and I know that's not a surprise to anybody. And the really, really interesting thing is that probably about 98% of those breaches or incidents could have been prevented,
right,
if they just had the right types of security in place. And that's really the shocking part. And our company is actually on a mission to help 100,000 people, and that's kind of a small number, but I figured that for my company, that's a good number to focus on, and that's companies and the people that work within them, to try to help them learn more about cybersecurity, make it easier to understand, and try to kind of mitigate that one big statistic where there's 97%, 98%, I think it was 97% last year, 98% this year, could have been prevented.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this thing here. 1 in 5 small businesses will be breached this year.
It's actually 1 in 4 now. This needs to be updated. And actually, last year was 1 in 4. A few years ago, it was 1 in 5. And there's a new stat that's published by Verizon. Verizon does a report every single year. They call it the Data Breach Investigative Report. And for 2022, it's already out. And it's not looking good for businesses. Wow. And they're saying it was actually 66 or 68%. I'm sorry, it was 68% of the businesses of businesses have been already had a security incident or a security breach already.
So, of course, first thing it is, and I'm looking at your form here, is they need to call you for a security assessment.
That is definitely one of the things that will help them have more insight. And as with any other type of security, there's components of security that is the same regardless of it's your home or your business or your cybersecurity as it applies to your computers, your network, and your servers, and everything else that you have, even your smartphones. So one of the presentations that we do, I call it the house in the cloud, is just to make it a little bit easier to understand, what security is. And it really boils down to 3 core elements. There's actually 5. According to NIST, that's a government agency called the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They have 5 standards, and I always cover that first one. It's identify, but that's kind of a little bit vague. So what it really means is, what's the most important thing in your business that you need to protect?
Right.
So if you got that part, and most businesses understand that, then we go on to those 3 core elements, which is protection, detection, and response. Okay. And a lot of times businesses think that as long as they have good protection in place, they got a good firewall, they got good antivirus, they're protected. But the truth of the matter is that, and this, according to the Wall Street Journal in an interview of the FBI and DOD, it takes over 6 months, 204 days, before a business knows that they've got malware. Malware is bad software like viruses or ransomware and things like that on their computers or networks before they even know it's there.
How many? 240 days?
204 days, a little over 6 months.
And by the time you're done, it's done.
Well, it's on the network and they don't know it's there.
Oh, God.
So the protection elements failed to detect those that are already there. The other scarier part of that is, it's usually over a year before they know they've even been breached. So in other words, there's a press release, there's a news story on TV, or there's a magazine article about, we've all heard them, like Lowe's, and this is another scary part, right? Lowe's was hacked through a third-party vendor that supports them, HVAC company.
What?
Yeah, and that accounts for a huge percentage, 62%. And that Verizon report that I was talking about, 62%, and this is as of 2022.
Right.
62% of the businesses that are being breached are through, they call it supply chain. We all heard supply chain too, right?
Yeah.
So through supply chain, that's a third party that supports the business. Another scary part of that is sometimes it's the IT company.
Oh,
Yes, I know this for a fact because in California, a good friend of mine and also a business owner, his company was one of those that got attacked, and 23 of his clients were infected with ransomware.
Oh,
that
no.
meant they had to completely wipe and reload all of the data on every single one of those. So we rallied to support him. There was 10 IT companies that came on site to help him, and several others that were helping remotely, being a remote resource to help do all these tasks along.
Right.
So I know this is real because I've helped another partner that was affected by this, an IT service provider.
So you would never think it would be your IT. That would be you would think
Right.
that is my absolute, that is the one thing that will never be breached.
Yeah, and it goes to show you that well, the truth of the matter is anybody can be hacked, anybody
Okay.
can be breached, and that's why we're seeing numbers like 1 in 4 businesses each year being breached. Or as of this year, 68% of the businesses have had an incident or breach already in the United States.
Wow.
So we're only, 3/4 of the way through the year here,
Yeah.
or not quite.
Right.
And there's still 3.5 months left or so. Who knows what's going to happen in that time frame, because we've had a 400% increase in the number of attacks year over year.
Okay.
In 2020 to 2021, it was a 400% from 2019 to 2020 as well.
Wow.
So in other words, it's just going faster and faster and faster, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And one of them is ransomware is still a very big threat out there on the dark web, and that's a whole conversation in and of itself.
We could do a show on that.
We
I'm just
probably
saying.
could. On the dark web, there are threat actors that are selling
Yeah.
their ransomware to anybody that wants to buy it. They'll sell it for really cheap, $200, $300. Really, really inexpensive. Turnkey business, go into business for yourself, right? Start your own ransomware. And all we ask is that, with that low price, just give us a percentage of it. So like when the Colonial Pipeline
Yes.
was
I remember
breached,
that.
if the hacking group that was behind that ransomware came out and said, hey, we didn't do this, it was one that they sold.
Oh,
Their package
okay.
that they sold. That's why they're trying to say that, hey, we didn't do this.
It's not
It was
on
somebody
us.
else.
It's not
But
on
of course
us,
it
yeah.
is on them.
Yeah, right.
They're trying to be the good guys, and
We'll help you.
yeah. Well, that's another funny thing is all of these ransomware companies are now turning to customer service because they want to make sure you get your data back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be I would tell everybody, you know what, don't pay the ransom because we have good backups and all this and that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you have private information or personally identifiable information, PII, on computers that get breached, unfortunately, since January of 2020, and we learned this from Fitbit, the Fitbit breach compromised a whole bunch, like 10 million records.
Yep. I was one of those.
Yeah,
Yep.
and they weren't going to pay the ransom because it was a 10 million ransom demand.
Right.
And they said, no, we're not going to pay it. And then the cyber criminals sent a sampling of the data that they pulled off of their servers and said, if you don't pay us, we're going to release this to the general public.
Oh,
now, why
boy.
did they pay the 10 million? Because think of all the lawsuits that would come from that,
yeah.
and the loss of credibility, or not credibility, but I guess you'd say reputation.
Yep.
That comes from all of their customer data, which includes healthcare information, which they
Right.
could be sued for. Think of the lawsuits.
That's a
and
whole HIPAA
everything.
thing.
Yes.
Right? Oh,
yes.
wow.
And that's one of the other things we help with, by the way, is compliance. HIPAA
Okay.
compliance, PCI compliance. Something called CMMC is coming soon for the manufacturers, or basically every single person that deals with the federal government will have to be CMMC, which is Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have to be CMMC certified and comply with the requirements for that, and it's more strict than HIPAA. Anybody that knows what HIPAA is, Healthcare Information Protection, Privacy and Protection Act, I think is,
Something
maybe
like
I got that
Yep.
wrong, I'm sorry. A lot of things going on up here. But yeah, it's going to be more strict in compliance standards than
So,
what HIPAA has.
what kind of companies are you looking for?
Well, we
We've
can
got about a minute left, and we got to
we
wrap it
can
up.
service any business that has. Typically, we look for 5 or more computers, but we can support smaller than that as well. And but we can support very large business as well, because we have a support desk, network operations center, security operations center that's true 24/7. We answer our calls typically within 90 seconds and resolve on average all of the issues that come into our support desk within 12 minutes.
Wow.
So we're fast, reliable,
What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Probably my email, john@justrightcomputers.com. Hopefully you can put my website up there, john@justrightcomputers.com, or call us at 813-669-5872.
John, thank you, brother. Now I'm even more scared. Oh, great. No, I'm just kidding. We love technology. Maybe we'll have you on and do a whole show with you, brother. So stick around. We got one more guest coming up, and then we're going to bring out the owners of this beautiful restaurant where we're at. We're Jay Goody's. Oh my God, this has been sitting there, and I just want to keep grabbing it.
It's so tempting.
Right? Stick around. We'll be right back after these messages.